actually on time today. Give me just a moment to get the word out. Gonna do it on both Post and on Spoutable. I am going to actively try to avoid the more toxic site because apparently, Napoleon, as I like to call the apartheid edgelord, decided that if you don't want to give him money, that he will limit your tweets. So I made my what I feel last tweet known, how I feel about trying to charge people for a site that's dying. I wish them luck. I'm locking down my account because until the genius decides that free accounts are just not what he wants on his site, which would be dumb, but I wouldn't put it past him. I'm not going to get rid of my account because I can't trust that it wouldn't be sold. So, yeah, my Twitter is now locked down. I have absolutely no intention on posting on there anymore, not even to promote stuff, which is sad because I actually have some really good news. Those of you who know me know I wrote a book, my first full length novel. It's in paperback and ebook form. We have an audiobook coming out soon too. I am so excited about this, but I also just got the word that Palace Market, I believe it's called, is Palace Media. They are people who distribute ebooks, audiobooks, and the like to libraries across the country. They just signed up with Draft to Digital, who wanted me to sign up to have my book distributed. So pretty soon, if you go to your national library or have the app on Google Play or whatever app store you do, I just use Google Play. You can get this book in e-form. The audiobook coming soon, but if you're looking to get this actual book, the physical book, I will have the links on the cast in the it's all over my Twitch page as well because I'm really proud of the work I did. And speaking of proud, I am going to get to a lot tonight, but especially my review of the SCOTUS State of the Union address. I mean, the soda. There was so much that went on my mind that night. And normally when I watch these things, I like to live tweet. But since I am no longer active on Twitter, I really don't see myself ever being active on Twitter. And since Spoutable, while on that night, I probably could have tried to live spout, it was touch and go. It has gotten a lot better to be on Spoutable, and I'm hoping to utilize it more. But Spoutable is so drama and toxic free that I want to limit how much of my old Twitter personality I bring over to that. And when I live tweet stuff, when I live my thoughts out, when I'm watching something, even when I agree with the majority of the things, I can't rein in who I am. So I am going to go over the notes that I made while I watched the SCOTUS and some of the rebroadcasts because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't seeing things that I didn't think I seen. And I'm so grateful for YouTube putting up the whole thing again so I can go back and just relive some of the emotion that I had watching the State of the Union address. It was crazy though. Let me exit out of these things so I can get my bandwidth back to stuff. My partner is live as well, playing video games. So hopefully these Bonnet Chronicles are coming in clear. But to say it has been a crazy week of ups, down, and in betweens, between the crazy weather we've had here, the fact that the book is going to be in national libraries, so much good has happened this week that it troubles me that I have to open like this. But if I don't nip stuff like this in the bud, if I don't confront misinformation, I can't be me. And one of the things that the Republicans decided to do this week was to hold these ridiculous kangaroo court committees. I guess this was their way to pay back the Democrats for the January 6th committee. So their pursuit of Hunter Biden drew them into not only having a committee to try to prove something that their own findings disproved, but it just shows the wasted time having a GOP led anything is going to be. And I hope this wakes people up to taking your local elections seriously. Because you got bobbleheads like Bobbert acting like a fool, screaming at people. Everybody wants to be against the tech, big tech as they want to call it. Big tech is failing, and I'm going to get to that tonight too, because that kept being driven home even in the State of the Union address. And I would like them to understand that big tech isn't as big as you think it is. Unlike some of the old guards, we have a lot of young, dumb, don't want to listen to idea type guys running tech technically into the ground. They're wasting billions of dollars on legless avatars and less than Wii U graphics. But I want to get to the point of the opening before I go off on a tangent about the tech bros, because I could spend all freaking night ranting about Zuckerberg and the lie, and I have in several other Bonnet Chronicles. But Bobbert loses it on ex Twitter employee during the hearing. Who the hell do you think you are? Because she's just the epitome of grace and class. Sarcasm flag. She is literally, yeah, Fluffy. She is just par for the course for them. Whenever they accuse somebody of pedophilia, grooming, trafficking, all you have to do is hold up a mirror. Her best bud, and you can tell by all the selfies and other pictures she's taken with him, Matt Gertz is one of the few that are openly being investigated for underage sex trafficking. But she wants to accuse somebody else of being a pedophile? That is my problem in a nutshell. But what they've been doing with their fake committee has been so disingenuous and dangerous. I already knew they were going to try to do the Hunter Biden laptop thing. They can't let go going after the president's son because they know they can't go after his father. They know Joe Biden's doing his job. So can they try to hurt him? They try to keep attacking his son. And now the news media is talking about, well, everything on his laptop was the real deal. And it's like, I don't care. Maybe it's hard for you to understand, especially since we literally came out of a crime family running us into the ground. That's one of the points that was made during the State of the Union. So I can't wait to get to that review. But you're trying to make me get upset at the president's son, who at that time was a private citizen, and at that time Joe Biden was not in the White House, and I don't care. We do not care, as that meme goes. So I don't understand the Republicans' obsession with non-story stories, but crafting narratives seems to be the only thing they can do. And now their latest bleeding, their latest, oh, look at us, poor us. Oh, big tech is against us. Big tech was used to sway the elections. And it's like, you mean we were allowed to talk and show misinformation? We were allowed to organize, which is what social media should be used for. And now you want to try and say Twitter and Facebook and everything else was utilized against you. And it's like, you got to realize that when you put a light on right wing logic, and I'm using the word logic very loosely, but when you shine a light on right wing rhetoric, and that is very hard to say, I felt like Elmer Fudd right there, but right wing rhetoric is dangerous. They hate women, they hate blacks, they hate people of color, they hate poor Christians, they hate certain rich Christians. They hate gay people. They hate straight people who don't identify as them. They hate anybody who's not them, and they hate not having power. So when you shine a light on it, yeah, it looks bad. Anybody with a brain is going to go, I'm not really down for any of this, so don't sign me up. Don't call me, I won't call you. And I think the problem with the Conservative Party is they're starting to see the hemorrhaging of both people that really do think and don't want to be told that your gender limits your rights to speak and be who you are and how much you can learn. Your color dictates your place in life. And they're jumping ship because hate doesn't really offer them anything. And I don't think the Conservative Party has much to offer anybody right now. One of the things that troubles me about the lies that they were saying is that they're so easily disprovable. Let me bring up this point because I love this point in the article that a lot of people will ignore. Let me make this bigger because I'm an old lady and I got old lady eyes. All right. Facts. The reality simply does not matter. It didn't move one Republican when Twitter executives said they had subpoenaed before the committee refuted these claims. It doesn't matter to the right wing media apparatus that blindly repeats these lies. I am aware of no unlawful collusion or direction from any government agency or political campaign on how Twitter should have handled the Hunter Biden laptop situation, which means Twitter did not cover that up. Twitter didn't care. Most people didn't care. James Baker, Twitter's former deputy counsel, told the committee under oath. While Matt Taibbi, one of the journalists handpicked by apartheid edgelord Musk himself, handpicked last year through the Twitter external messages for evidence of free speech violation and said himself there is no evidence that he's seen of any government involvement in the laptop story. Such statements from Baker, safety head Yoel Roth, former general counsel Yavelia Gada, and saturated Wednesday's hearing but fell on deaf ears. Republicans showed once again that they are married to pushing claims that Silicon Valley is intentionally and unjustly censoring conservative views, even when those facts do not, contort with these narratives. Ironically, the hearing appeared to reveal that Twitter actually acquiesced to Trump and changed its policies after it concluded that he had violated their rules. And one of those rules was that tool literally was very anti-immigrant. One of the things that I butt heads constantly with right wingers on, and told Ilhan Omar, who I'm not a huge fan of myself for my own reasons, to go back to her own country. A sitting president at the time being openly racist on social media. And what does Muskrat do? He lets the idiot back on. He changes the rules. And some might counter, well, 10, they changed the rules for Christy Teigen. She called Trump all kinds of dirty words, and the Republicans want to whine about that. They are really, really good with the trauma war nonsense. They love to mock, call people names, push their agenda. But if you don't want to hear it, if you block them, if you censor their words from your view, if you call them out, then, oh, how dare you? You hurt my feelings. Man, get out of here. The problem with the current Republican Party, to be 100% with y'all, is they don't care about facts. They just don't care about anything but being right about things. Their whole agenda seems to be just lies. And like I said earlier, Anika Kaya Varoli, I'm butchering your name. I am sorry, Miss Varoli. As a person whose name gets butchered, I apologize, but I'm squinting to read some of this. A former senior employee at Twitter content moderation team testified that social media company ended its ban on abusive language against immigrants to go back to where they came from so that Trump would not face repercussions for his racist 2019 attack on four minority Democratic congresswomen. So it wasn't just Omar, I believe Tlaib and a few others felt the brunt of his racist attack. But they don't want to talk about that. The Republicans don't care about big tech. They only want big tech to hold us hostage to their nonsense. And welcome to the chat, Respect. They only care about Twitter's antics because Twitter can't hold our feet to the fire and make us sit through their racist rhetoric. And a lot of us aren't even on Twitter anymore because, like I said, little Lord Fauntleroy decided that if you don't want to give him $8 a month, you're limited in tweets. So I said, okay, I could either limit my tweets on Twitter, which I really didn't want to be on there anyway. I could jump over to something else, which I've done with Spoutable. I can lock down my site so that idiot doesn't sell my account to anybody, and I can bounce and let it collect cobwebs. Why should I continue to put content that I know people want to re-look at on a site that I don't have any respect for? Twitter is going to go down in flames, and I only want to sit from the sidelines with my sunglasses on to document it. Because you let that guy who murdered my friends back on. You have let hateful, harmful people run your site into the ground, and you fired a bunch of people who could keep the site running despite all your idiocy. Matter of fact, I just read an article where Musk fired somebody for saying that buying the site ruined his reputation because he's touchy about this. When you're known as the idiot who lost $44 billion for no reason, you could have shit posted, acted dumb, and had a Twitter account without dropping 44 billion. But you wanted to fight the woke agenda, and good luck to you on that. Welcome to the chat, Terry Antico. Welcome, Respect, and Fluffy. I'm just like, I can't even explain the amount of schadenfreude it gives me at this point to watch him run Twitter into the ground. But then to have the people that he was doing this for hold committees and say, well, Twitter is the reason why Republicans are being censored. But are you? Is it the fact that Democrats learned that we don't have to waste time arguing with you all the time? When you push conspiracy theories, when you lie, when you believe in debunkable stuff, we just don't have the energy to waste time with your level of stupidity. And Twitter used to be the site that gave us the tools to limit how much of your nonsense we were exposed to until Musk took over. And for the woke agenda, wanted to fight. And now his site is crashing and burning. Now he's trying to force people to give him $8 a month. And you know what? Good luck to him. I will be on Spoutable. I will be on Post. I even had a Mastodon site created. I don't think I'm going to be on that one much because I don't understand it. I am old, and social media already exhausts me, but Spoutable works. It works well. Kiddo and Greg are now on it. I've seen several of you on it. I am happy to have a toxic, free of all the issues that I had on Twitter. I don't think I have half the hate follows that I used to have, which is nice. I can post the way I want to post and talk the way I want to talk without issue. And like I said, I'm going to get ready to get to tonight's main topic, but I really wish I could have did it on the night of the State of the Union address. The problem with that is Spoutable, like every other launch, is touch and go. And I did not want to overload the servers. One of the things that I used to like about live tweeting when I watch stuff like the address is the servers could keep up with my rapid fire thoughts. But right now, it wouldn't be fair to those who would be bogged down by stuff like that. And until the servers are a bit better, I won't be live spouting just yet. But I did take a lot of notes. Like, I was really impressed by some of the State of the Union stuff, but I had to side eye some of it too. Let's see if this comes up. Some of the things that I was making fun of that I posted on a post. Let's see. The cap and insulin, Big Pharma. Yeah, I went off on the Bernie Sanders tangent too, which would have been fun to actually do live, but didn't get a real chance to do that. So let me adjust this so I can talk about the State of the Union proper. Because that, to me, was the reason why we can't give up. I know the last few years have been exhausting. It's one of the things I've driven home in several other Bonnet Chronicles. But one of the things that gave me not only pause, but a sense of what I'm doing and what we all are doing when we vote, when we're active in our communities and beyond, is that we have people who want to fight for us. And one of those people is our current president and his vice president. And that State of the Union address filled me with so many emotions from the beginning of it. And I took notes because I couldn't live tweet it, refused to at this point, especially with the tweet limit, and I didn't want to bog down Spoutable, so I took a ton of State of the Union notables. And one of the things that I started out from the beginning, lots of chatter, familiar political faces. The president came out smiling, shaking hands. He's a man unafraid of being personable and a leader. Very warm feeling seeing the smiles, the hugs, and the joy. It was like day and night compared to 4 years ago. I don't even think I really sat through 45 State of the Union address. I hated the fact that this man was elected, and I use that term very loosely. And I wasn't going to pretend like any of it was normal. So I'm not even going to lie and act like I sat through Trump's State of the Union address. I wasn't interested. But needless to say, it wasn't warm. There wasn't smiles from the clips I seen of it versus this current 2023 State of the Union, which it just filled me with so much emotion. Okay, the president started off with grace, humor, congratulating both Kevin McCarthy and Hakeem Jeffries, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, and a special nod to Nancy Pelosi. It was a moment of unity that we sorely lacked for so long. And I felt that. I felt his genuine congratulations to McCarthy, despite the embarrassing way Kevin McCarthy got Speaker of the House. I felt he needed to also give nod to Hakeem Jeffries because him being the Democratic majority leader is not a small feat. He's a first. The fact that he was gracious towards Mitch McConnell, which, okay, I guess, and congratulated Chuck Schumer, and then made sure to acknowledge Nancy Pelosi's hard work, it was really good to see. Oh, same, Fluffy. I'm telling you, I have it in my notes. The message of moving forward was definitely driven hard. The Biden boom is definitely real. Despite our media and everybody else trying the sky is falling, despite them talking about the prices, which the president did, he was very open and candid about why certain things cost so much and what he's going to do to mitigate that. Because a lot of people want to only blame the president for the cost of food, the cost of living, without realizing the people who really have been dictating that and why Joe Biden is putting their feet to the fire now. Because he wants that stability. He wants that society. And I believe that. He not only believes in building people up, but he came, like a lot of us, came from very humble beginnings. So it's not like he was born and steeped in money. He might have it better now, but he didn't forget where he came from. He talks about being from Scranton. He talks about what it means to struggle. And I think having somebody who understands that be our leader comes across so much in this address and how he's handled coming into literally nothing. And I will not stop driving that home. We have 4 years of nothing but corruption. And as I get down in my notes, I'm going to note that because the president didn't take no prisoners. We're calling that out either. The message moving forward was driven home. He says COVID no longer controls our lives, which I paused a bit at that because COVID has already shaped how a lot of us live our lives now. I was already moving towards agoraphobia. I was working towards that with a psychiatrist. COVID did not help that. I am now team shut in for the foreseeable future. I've had people press me about book signings and other stuff. Nah, sorry. I can mail sign copies, but I am not trying to be around other people right now. Movies are out, even my favorite pastime of going to bookstores. I don't want to risk getting this even being boosted. Hospitals are already still clogged. I don't want to add to that. I have been working hard on my iron regimen. I started weightlifting again to keep my ass out of the hospitals. So, yeah, I am not particularly on team COVID is no longer controlling our lives. COVID has changed a lot of our lives. American possibilities. Hopeful, but I'm still kind of doubtful on the possibilities thing. I said that early. I changed my mind after listening to the entire speech, and I'll get to that. Come together is talked about. We can't ignore that the other side continues to push hate and harm, though. And I needed to make that note because I've always believed that President Biden believes in working together. He was a senator. I've never dinged him on that. The pragmatist in me, I'd rather have a politician and a president who can talk to both sides, who can come together and get them to work with him. I know some people want the us versus them. Save that for your favorite football team. In politics, I want people who can work together because we can't get stuff done if we're constantly stalled in one of our three branches. So, having a president who wants to work with everybody is a good thing, especially when we've come from somebody who didn't want to work together, who wanted the us versus them, who played the victim all the time at 45. He signed over 300 bipartisan pieces of legislation. This is Joe Biden's only been president 2 years. He's signed already 300 pieces of legislation that will help Americans, and it's bipartisan. No matter what I feel about the Republican Party, because I don't like them, I don't hide that I don't like any of them, honestly. When push comes to shove, they still have some members that are willing to do their job. And it's important for those of us who want to walk the line of pragmatism to understand that there are some states that still believe better red than dead. So as long as we have states like that, we have to learn how to work with these people. Not the full on extremists, which I'm going to get to in a bit in these notes, but the ones who really want to do well by their state. They're very few, but they do exist. Let's see. He made a good point about fighting for the sake of doing so. And I was so touched by that thought because I've been feeling this way since even watching Wakanda Forever. The idea of peace, the idea of stability being a bad thing has been a narrative for far too long. And having a president saying just fighting to fight, just causing wars to cause conflict, this so called push for power is a waste of time. Our goal should be a stabilized society. Our goal should be a safer, more educated society. One of the things that bothers me about so many world leaders is it's all about them. They don't care about the people they represent. Those are just tools to raise their power levels. And we finally have a leader that wants all of us lifted up, and a vice president that is smart enough to help him continuously lift us up because he gave her credit for a lot of those economic policies. And a lot of people who want to qualify VP Harris forgets that she's not just a law major. She majored in economics too. He talked about the economic crush in the middle class. And I know that, like, some of us Gen Xers who literally remember having grandparents where one could stay home and one could be a stay-at-home mom, basically. Having a one-income family was something that felt like forever ago. It has not been a part of my life in a very long time. If we didn't have two incomes coming in, we would not survive. And the president understands that. And I didn't feel for the longest time that Greg and I could ever make it to middle class. I still don't feel that way some days. Even with the book being published, even with all the good, it still cost a lot to survive. And with the way the tax laws were written, we were going to be reamed the moment we said I do. But we have a president and vice president that understood that. And when they drove home that the tax laws have not been fair to most Americans, and that it is time for those who actually make the most money in our country to pay their fair share, I nearly stood up. There were several times Greg looked over and was like, "What are you watching? Why are you so excited?" Because I was on headset most of the time watching it. It just made me feel seen, like so many of us who are just trying to do the right thing, take care of our families, pay our bills, and feel overwhelmed. Tax time shouldn't be a time of dread for most Americans, but it can be overwhelming when we are paying the lion's share for things when we can barely afford it ourselves. And you got people making billions of dollars each year paying nothing on federal taxes. And having the president call that out directly, call out the energy companies who literally made $200 billion last year, and had the nerve to say to the president, "Well, we thought you were going to shut us down, so we didn't invest in infrastructure." They're fucking liars. In the viral age, the problem is people with money want to flex it, want to show off, want to run to Dubai. Back spasm. They want to show off money, but they don't want to utilize the money to make things better. That's why we have power grid issues in Texas. It's why we have crumbling buildings and roads and bridges collapsing. One of the things that President Biden said was visiting these areas, he realized I had to do something. I don't want to see my country crumble apart. And what troubles me is exactly respect. And not to risk losing my channel, but Jeff Bezos can more than afford to pay his share in taxes. The man literally wasted money shooting a penis shaped rocket up into space for no reason but his ego. He owns Twitch, he owns Amazon, he owns Amazon Prime. He makes more than enough money to pay his fair share in taxes. What troubles me is for the longest time, especially under Reagan, we had a lot of businesses shift tax codes, make it where they pay little to nothing, and a lot of times nothing in federal taxes. Oh, it'll trickle down if we don't pay taxes. We'll hire more people. I remember 4 years ago, after that Yahoo stepped into office, there was a summit, and I'll never forget this because I was trying to break into online journalism at the time, so I started doing the research. One of the summits that I was privy to, this guy asked a bunch of CEOs, now that there's a surplus and now that Trump's in office, are you going to open up the job pool and do more hiring? Some actually laughed at the question. A lot of people did not answer yes, because they didn't care about job security. They don't care about stability. They're still trying their nonsense. It's why hundreds of thousands of tech jobs have been thrown to the wayside. They think they can punish this administration by firing people. And I don't think they realize that a lot of people who have been fired will just move on, will start their own startup because, like the president said, more than 10 million new small business petitions have been put out there. Grants are being issued. People have more than enough incentive to break out on their own. It's one of the things that I and so many creative types decided to do too. There are just way too many avenues to constrict ourselves to the old guard. It's just not it for us. And working a 9 to 5 till I'm dust isn't in the cards for me. I can't do it. I had a nervous breakdown when I was trying to do it. A lot of us are seeing the potential in not tethering ourselves to companies that just want to work us to death, pay us nothing, and watch us die while they continue to be rich and flex. The reality of the situation is, for the longest time, we didn't have leaders who actually understood that. But now we have somebody, despite his age, which I loved how candid Joe Biden was about that. He doesn't hide the fact that people want to ding him for being the elder, but it is his experience in our government for as long as he's had it to help us through these rough times. Because whether people like to admit it or not, we had some really rough times, even beyond COVID. Abroad, we had issues. We destabilized several countries. One of those countries being Syria, who just had a horrible earthquake on its borders with Turkey. 21,000, as of this reporting, are reported as lost or dead. It is an extreme time for that country. And one of the things they had to deal with, on top of the rollouts, on top of the constant attacks from both forces that were ingrown, like those terrorist cells, I hate to say their name aloud, and our forces, it was a very tough time for Syria, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. And right now, instead of trying to weigh a heavy hand on top of their already struggling shoulders, we should be offering help and relief. And I believe this administration cares, and I believe that's what we're going to be doing. I feel like Trump really caused so much damage. And we have a media that tries to downplay or normalize it, and you can't. What he did in Yemen was gross. The 4 soldiers that we lost in that weird, I don't even want to call it excursion in Africa, that people seem to forget about, but I will never forget about that sergeant's widow on his casket with a pregnant belly, because they shouldn't have died. All the school shootings, all the police issues, all this constant strife. And then you added COVID, which the man downplayed and had absolutely no rollout for. I am grateful for President Biden and Vice President Harris for the work they did. They rolled out not only the vaccine and COVID initiatives, the rapid testing, the boosters, faster than anybody who would have been inexperienced. And I loved how the camera kept panning the people. When Raphael Warnock showed up, I was like, "Woo, Senator Warnock, woo!" He called out Putin. He called out how his war to annex the Ukraine caused rapid inflation. How take home pay has gone up, though. Prices have actually gone down. Everybody was trying to ding this administration. They were crying about how it's all going to crash. The bubble's going to burst. It's going to be on Biden's head. And Biden was like, nah, we're not doing that. I talked about the 10 million new business owners registered. VP Harris is the reason for the spearheading push for small business owners. He's talked about semiconductors, which is tech. I know a lot of people might have started to tune out. Tech is a big part of my life. So I like the fact that instead of outsourcing overseas, we're building a lot of that here. Michigan is one of the states that has been largely responsible for a lot of the automobile semiconductors being made now. And he is trying to bring that into all sorts of industrialized parts of America. Corporations are going to hate this president because they, for the longest time, had it cushy. Like he said, like I noted, $0 paid in federal taxes. He is dinging them and holding anybody who makes over $400,000 a year to pay their fair share, something they haven't done in decades. He is not the president of the wealthy, he is the president of all of us. And he even said it, when you pay your fair share, it circulates. When you pay your people, they stabilize the economy. A stabilized economy can happen when people aren't selfish. And one of the things he kept saying that I loved about Joe is that capitalism is competitive. Anything else is extortion. And the president said it more than once because it's the truth. When you have a monopoly of businesses hoarding resources, dictating prices, setting goals that not only drain our society of actual funds, but really zaps our morale in buying, of course our society is going to suffer. But when you have competition and these businesses are forced to actually be competitive, not just bank on name or being the only people in the room, it gives opportunities. And we are supposed to still be the land of opportunities and possibilities, which is another thing the president brought up. that other countries still see us as the land of possibilities, but we have to live up to that. And we have to do that by stopping the chokehold of big businesses on us. I don't hate big business. I know that might surprise some of you, but I was a corporate bookkeeper in my young life. But one of the things the president brought up in his State of the Union address, something that a lot of people didn't know about me, is my career in finance got shot down almost early on because I signed a no compete clause. It fucking sucks. When you're 20 something years old, you get this job that offers you an insane amount of money for your age, and you think, I'll sign this. What could be the harm? And then you find out that you can't work in your field again for almost 2 to 5 years because of a contract you signed when you were too young and dumb to really read what you're signing. Now, he made the allegory of a hamburger worker. And I don't know, I haven't worked in fast food, so I didn't know they had non compete in fast food. So that really shocked me. But when I worked corporate, I had to sign a no compete clause to not work for another company like that. And it stymied my chances of getting another financial sector job. And it hurt. I didn't know what to do. I was lost for the longest time. And it really sucks the way these jobs play people, but especially young people of color who we're itching for an opportunity. We're itching to pull ourselves out of certain situations, and they take full advantage of that. And it is so good to see this administration call out those shady practices because no compete clauses, while they might work to protect certain things, and being in especially gaming and writing and stuff, I can understand why studios might do it. I can understand why gaming studios might do it. But not every company needs to lock their employees down like that. If you want to protect a new release, fine. Have your no complete cause centered around that. But when you stop people from being able to move on to another job, or in the cases of internet, cell phones, credit cards, when you stop people from trying to move on to something better, when you penalize them with fees and just making their lives miserable, and I am so glad that President Biden called that out. And I made a note about that too because Wells Fargo, which sadly is my bank, wasn't originally. I was a Wachovia girl. My grandmother got me in Wachovia, and I loved Wachovia. And then Wachovia got bought out by Wells Fargo. And I've been with them for a few years now. I'm not a fan, but it is what it is. One of the things that most of you poor people like me know is that sometimes you get behind. Sometimes you really get behind in bills and stuff, especially before the last few years, and you would overdraft. And I overdrafted left, right, and center at times because I wasn't getting put out. And I wasn't going to have them turn off my heat in the winter. I wasn't going to have kiddo go without food. So there were times where I openly overdrafted and I got slammed with fees. And now that is no longer going to be an issue. Wells Fargo and other big banks no longer can just do that. Airlines can no longer charge hidden fees. They can no longer keep your money if they all of a sudden cancel a trip like Southwest did to a lot of people last year. The president is serious about this. Hidden fees should not be a thing. Forcing people to stay with your company should not be a thing. Charging hundreds of dollars if they want to end their service should not be a thing. And high credit card debt, unless you've run that up yourself, should not be a thing. And it's so good to see somebody get that. Somebody understand what struggling families are going through. He talked about the supply chain beginning in America, meaning we need to manufacture things. Our construction needs to be made with our products, and we need to stop price gouging so that the flow of projects continues on. Because we should be building housing for people. How in the first world nation we still have a housing crisis and conflict is beyond me. But when we start utilizing our own workforce, our own construction force, we could get so much done in tackling that issue. We sank to 13th in the world in our position, but we're poised to make a comeback, he said. There's over 20K projects funded, which I wrote a little note. Hopefully, this will help us poor folks. Urban, rural, tribal infrastructure, and beyond. They panned Auntie Maxine, and I was like, woo, Auntie Maxine. He dinged the Republicans who keep voting against all of these bills. He said he's the president for all Americans, which is, like I said, as a pragmatist, what I wanted to hear. Capping insulin is a priority. Big Pharma will continue to do well. I love how Joe is candid about that. But 2K cap of drug costs because it's too damn expensive. Cancer is a personal priority to this president. As you know, First Lady Jill was diagnosed. I'm praying for the family to be all right. I think they will be. But he acknowledges how much it costs just to do these cares. And he, unlike some people that only wanted to make it about him, turned it to, I know families are struggling with this and I don't want that for you. What bothered me is while he was talking about this and talking about the youth not being insured and needing affordable health care and diabetes medicine, they panned to Magic Grandpa. And can we please get away from the narrative that Bernie Sanders is for the young people? His message of populism might talk to white youth, but he doesn't care about the young people. He cares about himself, and that's why he'll never be president. And it irked me that the cameras panned to him while the president was talking about health care. Because just because he screamed Medicare for all for the last few years doesn't mean he knows how to implement universal health care, which is what we all really want and need. It's just so frustrating to have him navigate this fuckery. To have him still be considered a powerful voice when all he does is shout and actually brings nothing to the table but angry old man energy. You want an angry old man? We have an angry old man in President Biden who's actually able to do the job and work across the lines because he realizes that a president of the United States is everybody's president. He said 2025 can be a big year for seniors if we continue on with this government doing their job. Which means if they work together and pass these bills, we can make stuff happen. He said any price raises, any 30% sales tax, anything that will ding the American people will be vetoed. And the camera panned to Ted Cruz, which made me laugh because he looked like he had swallowed all kinds of bitter fruit with that. He kept saying, let's finish the job. Then they panned to Christian cinema. And I'm sorry, I don't normally fashion shame because I normally don't care about that. But that big yellow dress she was wearing was not only... Why? Why is she doing this? Does she really think these antics are going to make us forget that she jumped ship from the party? I am totally pushing for Ruben Galeo when he runs up against her in the Senate because she can't primary, and that's why she jumped ship. She's gonna run as an independent. She's made her name. I wish her luck, but I'm a Democrat. I don't understand the stunt she pulls or the outfit she wears, but more power to her. She looked ridiculous in that big yellow dress. A president who cares about our environment, who cares about natural disasters, he cares about global warming issues, he cares about the U.S. and Puerto Rico, which is nice to have a president talk about Puerto Rico because Puerto Rico matters. And for the longest time, it has been exploited. There are far too many Americans going down there, making messes, acting like fools, and treating that place like their hangout, but not respecting the people that live there. And I really hope in the future that the president looks towards ways to not only provide proper aid, but to perhaps one day have Puerto Rico ready to be our next state. Because I still, in my heart, having family there, want Puerto Rico to be the 51st state. I think they deserve to be if they want to be, but I don't want to force them. And I don't think she was ever a dem either. I think she realized she could manipulate the situation. She got what she got. She will go wherever the pay is. And it's sad because there are a lot of people who still are fans of Christian cinema. And I never really wanted to think about her. But her stunts and her antics get on my nerves. And I am tired of stunters for power. And it doesn't help that she's over the top with everything she does. And she's not a person that can be relied upon. When they talked about things like police reform, which was another big topic that the president shy away from, I was remembering how when the George Floyd Policing Act came up, she dumbs down it. That hits my soul because Tyree Nichols' parents sat in there. Several parents. And that was another thing about the State of the Union address. Seeing parents, from parents whose kids are fighting and beating cancer to kids who were lost to things that weren't their fault, like Uvalde. That young man who stopped a potential massacre because 11 lives were already lost in Monterey Bay. Gun violence and police violence has plagued our country too long, and having a president say enough's enough, ban assault rifles, police need to stop being overburdened, because I agree. I have police members in my family. I've never hid that factoid. It doesn't mean I'm pro blue. It means I'm realistic that human beings are behind those badges and shields, and they're not infallible, but they do need to be held to a higher standard. They need to be trained better. They need to pass psychological tests, and they don't need to be doing the work of social workers. We have to give more resources to social workers. We need more mental health facilities, and we need less cops patrolling the beats acting like people are automatically animals. We need better societies where education, food, and shelter are guaranteed so that people have less desires to commit issues, less desires to need to escape because the pressures of not having get to them. We need a society that understands that mental illness is just that. And as somebody who lives with mental illness, it pisses me off that people only want to talk about it when there's an issue, when there's a shooting, when people act out, when there's a racist TikTok video. But many of us suffer in silence because people don't want to even understand how our minds work, understand what non lucidity is. I work hard to keep my family together, to keep my home stable. As long as I'm not stressed out, none of my symptoms really come out that much. I use manic ups to write. That's how I got my first book finished. It's not a perfect life, but it is my life. And it's a struggle at times to watch how people talk about what I go through, but not understand it. I want more people to talk about mental health, but not in the vein of negative, because there are plenty of us, there's millions of us who survived this, millions of us who live this life and understand that it's an illness. It's not a character flaw. If I had a choice, I definitely wouldn't want it, but it is a part of who I am, and I'm not ashamed to live this life. I want to shine a light and put a human face on it so that we can stop only associating mental health with the negative aspects. It will be very rare that people see when I'm having a low or bad moment because it shouldn't be only that. I appreciate that, Fluffy. I was really nervous at first because I come from old school black and Asian. They do not like you putting that kind of stuff out there. I was told, oh, you can play that away and other asinine stuff for years. And I was ashamed for the longest time. And there is absolutely nothing to be ashamed about if you have mental health issues. I want a society that not only provides help in the form of counseling, medication if that's your jam, or just counseling if medication isn't your jam. Because some of the things I've butted heads with other people who are struggling with this. I don't want to be on medication. Well, if you can handle and mitigate your issues without it, fine. But as somebody who knows that if I don't take my meds, I don't sleep. If I don't sleep, I'm not lucid. If I'm not lucid, things get bad. I'm going to take my meds. I feel like everybody acts like the whole conversation has to be one way or the other. It's a spectrum. When I tell people that I literally have schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of bipolar and schizophrenia, they'll look at me like I'm crazy. And I don't mean that in a pun thing. They think I'm lying because I've been working hard to mitigate the more severe side of that situation. It takes years, and a lot of people don't get to survive to my age because of how your mind works sometimes. It is a constant work, and I want more people to be able to do this. I want more people to see 40 and beyond because it can happen, but it is hard when you're not able to get those resources. You got to beg, scrimp, and save just to buy a bottle of pills that may or may not even last you the full month. When you know that if you don't take them, you can't shut your brain off. You can't shut the voices off. You can't sleep. And when you can't sleep, it gets bad because the lines of reality and non lucidity blur. And that is a reality for so many of us. And we need an administration that not only sees us, not just as bad, not as cast off, not as people that you just don't talk about, but as viable human beings that need health care. It is really important to me, even if I didn't have this, to speak up about this. Because way too many people have only seen Hollywood portrayals of mental health. They don't know that many of us are just trying to live as normal life as we can. One of the things having kiddo years ago that scared me was them repeatedly asking me, "You have thoughts of hurting your baby?" And then you see so many news stories of women that do just that. And it was like the only person in this world I want to protect more than even myself is my child. He's going to be 18 in 8 days. And having the president talk about the talk, which is something I had to have with my son. He went from at 16 being excited about getting his learner's permit to look at me in the eye and saying, "I don't want to learn how to drive." And that was after my mom and him went down to Atlanta to visit some relatives, and a cop pulled them over. And my mom was so scared that they were going to make kiddo step out of the car that they both had a near panic attack. That experience robbed my baby of the want to do things most teenagers are excited for. And that's the reality in America. And to have the president acknowledge that and then preface it with, "I've never had to do that for my kids. I never had to tell my son to look a certain way, to have your hands visible, to not make any certain movements, to look non threatening to somebody who automatically is trained to see you as a threat." That is the reality for so many black and brown parents because I haven't forgotten about my indigenous family. I haven't forgotten about my Asian and Hispanic family who have also dealt with police injustice because they're all animals to the people in blue. It was eye opening to have a president be blunt about the talk because so many families have had to have that talk. I got that talk. My sisters got that talk. My cousins got that talk. And it was worse for the boys. And when I look at my son, I still see my baby. But most people see a 6 foot tall, very broad, bearded young man, and they're going to make assumptions. And it breaks my heart because he is the sweetest person. He even made a Spoutable account because he loves the whale theme. Boy will not stop talking about ocean stuff. Thanks a lot. I really mean it. I love it. It just really hit me to respect. It makes you choke up when you feel seen, when you realize that this administration gets it. They understand that we shouldn't live like this. This is unstable. And we should not have police acting like a threatening force. Their badges literally say protect and serve. And having the president call out assault rifles, that was good too. Most of you know I've donated to and amplified Moms Demand Action. I believe in their cause. I want gun reform. I do not believe that proper registered gun owners would have a problem with any of the things that I've suggested, which I really do believe that assault weapons should not be in the hands of non-military. They only serve one purpose, and that is to kill. I am a military brat. Born and raised, learned how to fire a gun before I could barely walk. And even I was taught that these are not toys. If you're going to use it for its intended purpose. So it bothers me that people try to play around with it. Just like it bothers me the people who take pictures of themselves holding assault rifles like they're toys or accessories. These are literal weapons utilized to take lives. And we have allowed this culture, toxic gun worship, that has to be purged from our country. And it was so good to see a president. He wasn't mincing words with this. And I have to, before I wrap this up, get to the hecklers. Because I know some of you saw that. I had a little ding about Liz Warren clapping when he was talking about the taxes. I'm not going to, I already dinged 23andMe almost every other Bonnet Chronicles. But the howler monkey, Mayuri Green, who gets on my nerves, wearing that fur, talking about she's a Chinese spy balloon that got shot down. She's an idiot. The amount of disrespect that the Republicans shown at the State of the Union should show you that these people do not deserve the positions that they were lucky enough to steal. And we need to turn out so that we have less of that, because it was embarrassing. Bobbert's screwed up face when Joe Biden was like, no, check it. You don't believe me? Come get the receipts. I have the receipts. This isn't a president who's playing. He was Barack Obama's vice president. And his vice president is the queen of receipts. He told them, try me. And he's not playing. And the House GOP is like, Santos already lied about a lot of stuff, but I was reading an article before I fired up this Bonnet Chronicles where he literally lied about how Christian Cinema encouraged him at the State of the Union. She was like, no, I didn't. Don't look, I'm already in enough trouble by jumping Democratic ship. I don't need you trying to link us up, man. Everything that comes out of Santos' mouth is a lie. And the fact that McCarthy isn't doing his job as House leader and getting rid of him, even though he doesn't pass the smell test, everything about him is a crafted lie. Even Romney and him got into a back and forth. And you know when a milquetoast motherfucker like Mitt Romney is calling you out, Mittens don't normally call out other Republicans. But you have offended your fellow politician to a level where he called you out on the floor of the State of the Union because you're a fraud. It's time for the Republicans to do their job, but they're not going to. They are here to destabilize us. And that is why the whole point that I drew from the State of the Union address is that this president needs us. He needs us on a state and local level to elect politicians that will work with him, whether they're red, blue, or in between. We have to be personally invested because we are literally watching states like Florida and bring back Jim Crow. We are watching states like Texas cave to power companies and watching grids cause dozens of people to fight in parking lots over thrown out food. Because it is a struggle, and it shouldn't be. Texas is one of the most wealthiest states in our union, but only for the few. And it is time to change that. And it is on us. And I don't know what it's going to take. Texas had Uvalde. Florida had the Stoneman Douglas. New York had Tops. California's had several mass violence and gun shooting. What is it gonna take to open Americans' eyes that this shit is not stable? What is it going to take to have fewer governors that make shit about them and not about their people? I said it the last Bonnet Chronicles, and I mean it. Governor Whitmer's rolling out not only relief packages for the state of Michigan, but infrastructure things. She has brought the chip jobs to us, and she legalized weed. We have made $1.9 billion since last year in revenue for the state, and we are only continuing to go up. So when you have local and national representation, it really does matter. We're not banning books in my state, but in states that I have lived in, that's a problem. And as a published author now, I really don't want to live in a country that bans books. I don't want to live in a country that denies citizens education, because that only causes death and destruction. So it really is on us. And if you take away anything from the State of the Union address, is that we can do this. We can push forward, we can work together, and we can see a prosperous stability, because stability is not the enemy. Peace is not the enemy. The enemy is the ones attacking free and fair elections, pushing against things like the George Floyd Policing Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. They're the ones who cheered when they repealed Dobbs because they don't believe women should have the right to choose or right over our own bodies. They just want us to be fuckable beanbags and baby incubators. That is not the America that we should be pushing for. And that is not the America any of us want. So it is on us as citizens to get our stuff together, to stop allowing the ones who want to push us in that direction to dictate. And I know it's not going to be easy. We have seen with the way the midterms came out that there are still a lot of us who they front like they're blue no matter who, but them numbers don't lie. And I want better. But some of you need to get them voter numbers up. You need to do better with the drives. You need to do better with getting the people around you to vote, because it does matter. One of the things that has been driven home for too many of my white friends for years is, you shouldn't care about the government. Voting's not going to matter. So many of them still say that. And then when you ask them, well, who represents you? Oh. Well, did you know they banned books in your state? What? Did you know that you can't get certain medications because they're afraid that it might cause abortion? But I'm a dude. Yeah, it matters. And for far too long, too many of you have had the out of apathy. But if you all started to vote like black women, not just saying it, but actually vetting and voting and making informed choices, we can get to a better place. Next year starts a lot of primaries, runoffs, and I want to see how many of you have learned the lesson. Because like I said, the midterms pissed me off. It didn't piss me off for sister girls like me. It didn't piss me off for the few of you that I know were doing the good thing despite your demographic. But it pisses me off that 60% of certain Americans still feel safe under the cold grip of theocracy, without realizing nobody's trying to tell you not to be Christian at this point. Nobody's telling you that you can't believe better red than dead. We're telling you it's not for the rest of us. And we don't want that ruling over us. We want a democracy. And we're going to get it. But I'm going to get ready to really wrap this up. I thank you all so much for sitting through the State of the Union review. I was charged up after watching it, though, y'all. It was what I needed to hear. I like that he acknowledged the people that we lost, because millions died to COVID. And I hate to wrap it up on a somber note, but just thinking about Anne and thinking about Lynn, thinking about my elders who were in New York when COVID first hit, in the nursing homes that didn't know. So they died and their bodies were just dumped unceremoniously. Thinking about not being able to have actual homecomings because we couldn't gather for their funerals. All of us felt the deep impact of COVID, and having a president who is empathetic enough to acknowledge that gave me pause, but gave me hope that all the work we did to get them elected wasn't in vain. And I fully am backing Biden Harris in 2024. I know some people want to speculate in our media. I know some people want to pair him up with somebody else. Biden Harris or bust for me. They are doing a damn good job, and I refuse to play those games with the media, with other one is speculating. This president and vice president are what we need, and I want 4 more years of it. So I don't know about other people. I see it in the chat, y'all. But most of us understand where we could potentially go with another 4 years of this administration and beyond. I seen an article the other day where they're floating Harris Clinton, which I don't know. I think that might be a bit too much for this prejudiced country. But a girl can dream. I've already floated that if VP Harris teamed up with Pete Buttigieg, I wouldn't say no to that. There is so much potential for 2028 that I can't even think about it. But what we're not going to do is turn our backs on a functioning administration. I want us to continue on to that path forward, like the president said. And I believe in the future being democratic and going beyond. There's so much we can do. Like I said, I believe in the future of biotech. That's why I wrote my first novel about it. I think the only way for humanity to truly get better is to fully understand the technology we have around us and not exploit it. But it's going to take time, and it takes a smarter society to understand that. But I'm telling you, we have so many hard hitting A-list type Dems that can keep things going even beyond an 8 year run of Harris and whoever she picks. We have amazing people that are coming up in the ranks that we are just learning about. People like Hakeem Jeffries, people like oh my gosh, I keep saying Ayanna Presley, but as much as I don't like the squad, she's squad adjacent. There are so many people that can potentially be in that Oval Office, and it makes me excited. But we have to do our part to keep them in their current path. So if they're your representative and you can see them being president one day, support them. And it doesn't always have to be money. I know about being team broke ass. But make sure you turn out. Make sure your friends and your family turn out, because a ballot is just as important as funding the campaign trail. And I think a lot of us in this digital age are finally starting to understand that. And I believe that too, Respect. I cannot wait to call him Speaker Jeffries. Oh, Harris Ossoff would be amazing. Oh my gosh. That would be a ticket I could get behind too. There are so many amazing senators, amazing representatives, amazing local talent. I'm a huge fan of Big Gretch. I would love to see one day her move from the governorship to a potential presidential position, maybe 20, 30 years from now. Especially since I don't think she's going anywhere. I really do feel there's a wealth of talent within our party, and we can be the ones to see that goal. I want to see more females in position of power, because we've had way too many old white males dictate what we can do with our bodies, and I'm not okay with that. And the only way we're going to stop that and really enforce both gender equality and emotional maturity is to have a female commander in chief. And we already cracked that glass ceiling with our VP. Let's shatter it completely in 2028. But I am going to get ready to wrap this up. I thought Axiom Wolf might have been lurking. Let's see if I can fire this up myself, because I know he'll get sad if I don't play this. And I want to play out on the high note. So, reward is on the cool now. Somebody else. There he is. So much for sitting in. Reminder that our book will be in National Libraries ebook form for now. I don't know how the physical books are gonna pull out. I am so excited about this, y'all. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I know it's because so many of you bought copies, got copies, so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I will see you all on Tuesday. You have a great weekend. Good night.